Hey guys, this is Brian with Westcott Woodworks. Today I'm going to be showing you how to make a zero clearance insert plate for your table saw. As you can see here, I've got three different types of plates. This one here is the one I made. This is the zero clearance plate that I'll be showing you how to make here in just a few seconds. This one here is a standard size insert plate that you'll use for the majority probably of your table saw needs. As you can see, there's a gap on each side of the blade, which is great normally, because if you're ripping pieces of lumber, it lets the sawdust clear out of there and makes real good clean cuts. This is a dado insert plate, so if you've got a dado chipper, you can use that as well. But all three of these are something that can be made and recreated if this one were to wear out. So I'll show you how to do that. I'm going to be making the zero clearance one, but again, the principle is the same for all three. You'll just cut through the plate with a different blade, which I'll explain later. Anyway, here we go. So the first thing you do, you make sure obviously the saw is unplugged, which this one is, power's off. And then I use MDF for my insert plates. So I just got a rough piece here. The reason I use MDF is because it doesn't change its shape or warp or bend or anything due to humidity or changes in temperature in your shop, or as you can see, I'm working out on the deck right now. But anyway, you just take the plate off that was in there, set it down on the piece of MDF if that's what you choose to use, and just kind of get a rough outline of what it is, or where it's at on your piece of MDF. Once you do that, I'm going to just cut it out with a jigsaw. Alright, once you got that rough shape cut out, as you can see, mine is nowhere close to right on to what the size of that insert plate was. But what you do next is I take my old insert plate. It's got these little leveling screws in it, so when it's in the throat there, you can level it so it's level with the rest of the table. I take those out, and then I've got a couple of handful of little screws here that I'll actually put down in there, which will hold the old insert plate to the zero clearance one, so that I can take this. This is a top bearing flush trim bit made by Freud cutting tools, and I just put that on the router table. You mount it, obviously it'll be upside down like that, and then you'll take your old throat plate, you'll just run the bearing, will run right along this edge here, and trim this MDF so it's the perfect size that matches up with this. So again, the first thing I'm going to do, pop these old self-leveling screws out. Don't lose them. You want to put them back in so you can use them again when you switch plates back. And then just secure this plate to the new one. So at this point, we're ready to go ahead and route this out with the flush trim bit. So here we go. Alright, so now you can see you got the first route with the flush trim bit on there. It wasn't quite large enough to do it all in one pass. So next I'm going to dismount this old throat plate and then run it one more time with this part that's been routed up against that bit bearing, so that way you can trim the rest of it. Now, as you can see, the throat plate here is going to be a little bit thicker than what this other one was. So the next thing I do is I take it to my thickness planer and plane it down so that it's the right height as the other one. And unless you have like calipers, it's tough to see on a tape measure exactly how thick this is. You may be able to look it up in the specs of your table saw and see. So I kind of just run it through the planer and keep going until these, when I lay them flat on the table, feel like they're lined up right next to each other. Alright, the last thing you want to do once you've got the thickness down to the right size, which ended up being just about 3/8, just a hair under that. If you look on this old throat plate, or the standard one it comes with, on one side this rail runs the full width, which, like I said, is about 3/8. This other side, it's cut out here a little bit, and that's because for whatever reason on the Bosch table saw, where the motor sits, it's kind of moved in a little bit. It's not going to be like that on all table saws, but on this one it happens to be. So it's probably not the most conventional way to do it, but what I do is I take this oscillating spindle sander. If you don't have one of those, you can use sandpaper if you use MDF, because I mean it's really easy to sand pretty quick, because it's not real dense. But anyway, I just kind of keep running it on this oscillating spindle sander until I've got a little groove in here to where it'll sit flat on the table saw. So it's kind of a back and forth, sand a little bit, fit it. If it doesn't fit, sand a little more. Just keep going back and forth. And as long as the top of this plate is flat and smooth, and you don't, obviously sand way into this, then it'll still fit and work all right. But so anyway, I'm going to do that, and then we'll try and fit it in and see what happens. Alright, now that you've got everything all routed out, this is what the bottom of mine kind of looks like now. So you can kind of see that's a real wide angle on there, because I did it on that oscillated spindle sander. But the next thing you'll probably I'd recommend doing is go ahead and put you a little hole in here, because if you go to set this thing in and it does fit, it's a lot easier to get out if you can stick your finger in something here and pull that out. So let's go ahead and see if it fits in there. It does. You want to make sure, since obviously you don't have self-leveling screws in here, you want to make sure if you were to tap on all four corners, it's not doing one of these numbers in here and shaking all over the place. It does shift a little bit front to back, but I'm not worried about that, because when the piece is down on there, it'll hold it flat. Then you got your hole here so you can pick the thing up. One other thing I'd like to mention too is the blade I've got on here now is a thin kerf blade made by Freud, and it's a if you measure it with a caliper, you're going to see it's 3/32 of an inch thick, which the standard saw blade is an 1/8 inch thick. Well, if I'm cutting really small pieces, I'm going to use a thin kerf blade more than likely anyway. So that's the blade I'm going to use to set up this zero clearance plate. So just keep in mind, if you do your zero clearance plate and you do a 3/32 blade, if you ever change that blade, put an 1/8 inch on there, obviously you're going to cut more of your plate away. So wouldn't be a bad idea, since you got this rough template, if you got some leftover MDF, to go ahead and make you another couple of these. Eventually this will wear out anyway, so just make you a couple more of these just to have laying around to use for all your different sizes. So alright, this next part should go without saying, but I'm not going to assume there's not some dumb people out there that wouldn't use common sense anyway. But you want to make sure the table saw is unplugged for this part, which this one is. What I normally do is I'll kind of line this new blade or new insert up, and just go ahead and take like a T-square or something and just mark kind of down the side, where this blade's going to come up through here. So roughly it's going to be in this general area here. And then you can go ahead and kind of slip it in here and just do the side to side, or the front and back rather, just so you have a rough idea of where this thing's going to come up through here. Because what I do, and I've said this before, I think on a video that I've done before, is you know, I start each project with 10 fingers at this point, and I'd like to finish the project with 10 more fingers, or the same 10. If I grew 10 more, that'd be kind of weird. But anyway, so I use this this gripper jig here, and just hold this down flat and raise the blade up through there slowly. As you can see, there's this channel here, so I'm not at, you know, there's no safety issue here with me cutting any fingers off. I know the blade's going to run through here, so you know, make sure you're not putting the gripper pads on there. You can make a little jig for this if you don't have these. Just, you know, get a piece of MDF or plywood and make you 2 legs and a top, and put a little handle on there just so you can hold this down there. So go ahead, plug the saw back in, and then we're gonna raise the blade up through there. As you can see, there's the blade coming up through. You can obviously raise it up and lower it down. I just didn't want to go too high because I didn't want the blade to hit the top of this little jig here. But anyway, so now you can see when you go to cut a smaller piece of wood, it can run on down through here. There's no risk of it falling through there, and since there's no gap on either side, this is perfectly fit to this saw. There won't be any tear out either. So if you have any questions, go ahead and you can put them in the comments below, and I usually respond pretty quick to all of them. And if you want to see this in action with some of the other videos, just check out a few of the other ones. I know there's going to be one, if it's not already up now, it'll be up soon. It's making quarter round and shoe molding, and then how to make cove molding and base cap. So check them out. Thanks for watching.